Thank you for joining me for another episode of Think Your Way to an Epic Life. You might notice Kara has dyed her hair and she's changed her age a little bit today. I'm just kidding. My name is Ryan Major, and I have the honor of stepping in as host for today. I'm one of the achievers that Kara has coached for over 4 years, and I'm proud to call her one of my dearest friends. And I'm super excited to get to do this today. I'm going to be interviewing Kara along with Dr. Ron Stotts about their brand new masterclass series. So if you hang out with us today, I promise you're going to get something great out of it. Um, Dr. Ron Stotts, an executive coach, should bring over 45 years of combined experience guiding thousands of leaders, myself included, to guide them from burnout to breakthrough and leave a legacy. So, we're going to be talking today. They're starting a 100% free series masterclass on October 6th. It starts at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. Legacy Leadership, Creating Success That Lasts, a 10-part journey designed to help high achievers break the cycle of overwork, heal at the root, and lead with clarity, calm, and impact. So let's check it out. So, first question today. A lot of people think the harder that you push, the more successful you'll be. What's the hidden cost of a hustle harder mindset?
I'll take that. It's really a pattern that comes from fear and that subtle feeling of not feeling like we're enough. If you keep in mind that when you're a child, you want love and acceptance more than anything else because that's what guarantees that you're going to become an adult. So that's going to get you through those years when you're helpless into those years where you can take better care of yourself. So, a lot of times we stuff away a lot of those different aspects of ourselves that we don't feel are acceptable and develop those parts that we feel people like. And so all those subconscious areas are what we're really talking about. Our earliest ways of protecting ourselves really become what subconsciously sabotages us later in our life. And so it's good to understand that. Carol, why don't you talk a little bit about the saboteurs and how that works?
It is crazy, guys, that Jim Rohn said very, very clearly, if you'll invest more in yourself than you do on your job, you'll go from making a living to making a fortune, right? And so often we run and run and run, and we do things like one of the biggest saboteurs that I have not completely overcome, but I have mastered in a big way is being a people pleaser. And so being a people pleaser was exactly what you said, Doc. It was my way of surviving childhood. I had to do that in order to survive. For me to continue doing it, now that I've healed in a big way from that, I see that being a people pleaser is actually being dishonest because you're not telling the truth. If you upset me, I don't tell you that you upset me because I want to please you. And then eventually you've upset me so many times that I'm done with you. And you're like, but you never ever told me anything was wrong. So that's one big saboteur that I think kind of kicks our tails a lot.
What I see as an executive coach is people come in and they were really applauded as when they were young for being so smart, and then they got into Harvard, and then they got the right job, and now all of a sudden in their life, in their 40s and 50s, somebody's going, well, that's not enough anymore. There's all sorts of indicators that that's not enough anymore, and they they want to be in control, but as I kind of point out to them what they're doing to be in control, which is they quit breathing, go into their left brain, they're really shutting down the access to the best of who and what they are. So that attempt to be in control from the perspective that they have in the process, they realize, oh, that really puts them out of control. And so yeah, it's just old stuff playing out that doesn't even make sense once you step back and become more self-aware and understand it.
Coach Ron, how have you seen your clients, your coaching clients, how have you seen them embrace the idea that when they work so hard to achieve something and they finally get it, and then they have that emptiness that, okay, now what? Okay, they keep moving the goalpost. How have you seen additional burnout happen through that with them?
Well, I don't see additional burnout. I see them get excited because what I do, I celebrate everything that they've done. I congratulate them for everything they've done, the development of the left brain, the development, their successes in their life. That's, great, great work. The thing that I point out that they do get excited about is all these indicators, all these struggles, all these might even be failures at that point in their life, are really just indicators that they're ready to evolve. It's kind of like the lobster when they feel a particular niggle or discomfort in there, once a year, they realize, oh, I've got to go into my den and shed this old shell and grow a new one so that I can continue to grow and evolve. And we're really the same. If we don't take that time to continue to evolve, letting go of what no longer works so that we can grow into the levels that we're capable of being, we're going to die, quite literally. We die in our success, we die in our relationships, we die on a physical level because we're not breathing and keeping ourselves, taking care of ourselves in the ways that we should.
Wow, that was great. Okay, so in that same vein, you always say that we can't out hustle our wounds, and achievers continue to try to do that. So, how does that hold us back?
That I got to grab that one because that was my way of escaping my family. And I had two alcoholic parents. My mother was never really there. She was physically there, but she was never really there. And I recreated that, not with alcohol, but with work. And so I was one of these people that used to work 80 hours a week. And I didn't have a clue that I was running away from my life. Like, I thought I was building my life. I'm working and I'm earning and I'm doing all this stuff and I'm building my life. And the truth is, I was running away from it. Brene Brown said that you either walk inside your story and you own it, or you stand outside your story and you hustle for worthiness. And so every time you say yes to hustling, you're saying no to healing. Every time, guys, every time you say yes to anything, you're saying no to something else. And so it's really easy when your boss comes and says, hey, can you go to this conference 2 months from now? You're like, oh, yeah, 2 months from now, no problem. I can say yes. But that 2 months comes, and maybe it was your child's recital that you had to miss because you said yes to that other thing. And so, hustling will never, ever heal you.
Yeah, and it really results in a disconnection from ourselves and others. It results in a limitation of accessing who we're really capable of being, and it runs into exhaustion and burnout. And that, of course, especially if you're in the higher echelons of leadership, just washes through the whole organization. So everybody's on edge. Everybody, production decreases, profits decrease, and that makes you more afraid. And then the cycle just continues. So it's really, you have to go on that journey of becoming more self-aware, which leads to not only greater self-awareness, but increased emotional intelligence. So you become more caring of yourself. You become more aware and caring of others, and you end up creating an organization that's more in sync and capable of, fulfilling its potential.
Do you know that Stanford research shows that 90% of success in leadership comes from emotional intelligence? I mean, it's such, we're looking at IQ when emotional intelligence is really your inner game runs your outer game. And I think it was Theodore Roosevelt said, if you believe you can, you're halfway there, something like that. Ford said something real similar to that. And the truth is, it's got to be on the inside. You have to fix the inside to get the results you want on the outside.
So, how do we get our leaders to slow down enough to do that?
Well, unfortunately, they usually have to run into something that's extraordinarily scary to them. And, I had one fellow come in who's got 5 9-figure businesses. Well, that's not even true anymore. They're much more profitable than that. But when he came in, and the love of his life was leaving him, and his 2 adult boys were disconnecting, and he was losing some really top employees, and it felt like he was going to lose everything. And so within a month, of really looking deeper and reconnecting with himself, he saw how he could restructure everything and really create entirely new relationships. The truth was, when he came in, the first thing he said to me was, now, I've heard about this love stuff, and I don't love myself, and I'm doing fine. That was my moment that I knew I shouldn't have signed up for this one. But within a month, he quite actually did fall in love with himself. And it was that connection within himself, as it is with all of us, our relationship with ourselves is mirrored in a relationship with others. And so it was with him as he restructured his organizations and has continued to. I met with him, that was 5 years ago, and I met with him just a month or two ago. He flew me down to the Bay Area to help him through a big transition that he's doing. And it's just now he's just in this refinement. He knows, oh, I just need to breathe and let go of that fear, breathe and trust, breathe and recognize that everything's fine and it's perfectly designed to support me. And the more he does that, the more he lets go, the more success he has, the more everything's designed to serve and support others now. And it's just a joy to watch him, joy to watch his wife, or excuse me, the love of his life came back and they're married and literally living this wonderful life. And the two boys, when I was there, they were both come back from wandering the world to they're living there and working with their dad. And so, yeah, it reflects throughout our life, no doubt about it.
Do you think that part of his resistance at the beginning was out of fear for what the people in his life would perceive the change to be? Do you think that he thought he was worried maybe they would perceive it as weakness to go into that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Vulnerability is not something that we're comfortable with. Yet it turns out that vulnerability stems from our being more self-confident and authentic. And with that authenticity, we are more willing to be vulnerable, and that creates a more trusting, connected relationships with others, and they become more vulnerable, and that creates more connection and collaboration. And that results in productivity and greater profits all the time, every time.
I love that you just said all of that, Dr. Ron, because it reminds me of when Kara and I started working together several years ago. I told her in our first meeting that if I was going to have a coach, they could not prescribe to my BS. I could not sell them, right? And so I have a habit, or I had a habit, thankfully I've worked on it for many, many years now, of false vulnerability, like the ability to make others feel like I'm being vulnerable, but really it's nonsense. So, Kara,
Right.
I would love to hear from you on how how you see through that as a coach when you have these people come in like me, who are great salespeople, and how did you muddle through that with me back in the day?
Unbelievable amount of patience. Oh, truly, it is difficult, and you just have to take the few opportunities that you get and use those, like for example, when I hypnotized you about the whole Amazon thing. That was like, that was impossible. You were unhypnotizable the entire time. But that one day when you came on, I could just see you were ready, you needed it, and I just took you there and you went. And what was it you said? Oh, we can't repeat that on here. No, no, but it's
No,
good stuff.
that's just for us. Okay, so I love this conversation because it kind of leads us into when a leader stops being fearful of others' perceptions, they stop being scared to change. They're able to start leading from trust and collaboration. So, if we know that the leader sets the tone for the organization as they start to do the inner work, it's going to bleed out into their trusted advisors, into their top salespeople, into their top leadership team. So how does that shift an organization as a whole, and what does the beginning part of that look like?
Well, the beginning always starts with self-awareness. When people come in working with me, they become more self-aware. They begin to recognize that all their defenses, all their deep held beliefs that make them feel like they're in control are really just their childhood, their adolescent wounds playing out, but now they're playing on an executive level and it's washing through the entire organization. So if I'm fearful of rejection, then I'm going to try and be in control. If I'm not feeling good enough, then I'm going to be very detail oriented and expect that from everybody. And it's going to play out in lots of different ways. And so as we begin to understand how those wounds play out and heal ourselves so that we're really just making the subconscious conscious. All the things that are running our life are subconscious. We're aware of about, say, 5% of our thoughts, 10% at the most. So that other 90% is just in our subconscious mind and running our life. That's where all of our limitations come from, our fears, the things that tangle us up and trip us. And so, as we recognize that and heal those things, we become more self-aware. We become a more emotionally intelligent in relationship to ourselves. But it always, within literally a couple of months, graduates into becoming more compassionate, empathetic, understanding, and appreciative of others and where they're coming from at any given situation. So all of a sudden, everybody starts feeling more comfortable rather than you being the ogre controller, oh my God, the boss is coming in kind of person. You become the person they're glad to see because they know that you're going to help them and support them. Your job becomes bringing them the best out of them, bringing them into the leadership that they're capable of having, because you learn in time that, oh, if I can develop all of these people and bring out the best, then I don't have to do so much. I don't have to micromanage and control and be fearful all the time. I'm thinking of a fellow I was working with who, he was referred to me by the founder of the company that I had worked with. And I, was on a call with him and I said, so how is so-and-so doing? And he goes, I don't know. I haven't seen him for 2.5 months. And this is a fellow who was micromanaged him all day long before. And now he's gone for 2.5 months because he trusts this fellow who's now in a CEO position to handle everything, and reasonably so, and so and then all the people that work from him, they're going to develop, and he's going to treat them with more supportive ways and bringing out the best in them. So he's even doing less and be able to handle more if he wishes. And so, yeah, it's just quite simply, and I kind of said it before, you create that more trusting, supportive environment that seems to have a deeper purpose, and people really feel like a valued member of that, and they start giving their all, and they're committed to that, and so all of a sudden you are more productive, you're more cooperative, more collaborative, more productive, and you're more profitable. It just makes sense. Think in terms of, I used to be on crew, and I was a U.S. rowing champion, and it's like we were just a bunch of young idiots in a boat, to be honest with you, but we had a good coach, and that coach got us working together as a team, so we were in complete alignment, which allowed us to be the best. I was walking in the park with my wife the other day, and Canadian geese went over in that famous V shape that they're in, and she was sharing with me how one Canadian goose trying to fly down south is really going to go through a lot of effort, but in that V shape, and they're supporting each other and working together, they can go about 70% further each day. And that's so with any organization, with a family, with any connection and collaboration you're in. So yeah.
It sounds like it allows each team member to have clarity around what they bring to the table and then appreciate each other and gratitude through it. And how would they not go further faster together
Yeah.
in that
Well,
posture?
I mean, I used to work with corporations, and the marketing team didn't want the developmental team to know what was going on, because then the developmental team would develop things that then push the marketing team and make each other, and it's like, here you've got an organization where the left hand and the right hand aren't coordinating their organization. And so, when you start to trust, then you start to collaborate, you start to work together, and that results in a total win for everybody, including who you're buying from, who you're selling to, and the world at large.
That's incredible. Okay. shifting gears. You say that being calm is a superpower. No one in the entire universe has ever accused me of being calm. So I'm very anxious and excited to learn how I can get this superpower. So, how do we use our breath more effectively and rather just pound through and work harder and push more? And how can I chill out and be better?
Well, to give you a little credit, you have come a long, long way.
Well,
I
thanks.
mean, truly, you truly have. That, no joke about it. You really have. And and I remember trying to talk to you about meditation in the beginning, and that went over like a lead balloon, right? And so now, what would you say your habit is now around meditation, about quieting your brain?
I have found I have found a way that works for me. And I've figured out that if I move my body through a yoga practice 3 times a week, at the end of that, I'm able to actually really sit and meditate and work through it. So for me, that's been kind of the way that I can tap into it. I'm still learning.
Yeah, and we all are, I mean, that's the thing for someone to say that, oh, when I meditate, no thoughts come across my mind whatsoever. It's like, yeah, okay. That's great. However, you do get better at it, and breath is the key. It is absolutely the key. Just a really quick kind of like a thumbnail way of remembering is breathe in and then breathe out for double. Breathe a good deep breath in and then double. And physiology absolutely changes your state faster than anything in the world, which is breathing, right? So like guys, right now that you're listening, if you were to smile and then pull your shoulders back and look up at the ceiling and just smile, I guarantee you in that pose, you cannot let yourself get down. You can't. It's not possible. Look at the smiles, right? And so the same thing with breathing. When you take control and you say, no, I'm not at the effect of whatever it is that left brain is wanting to do, wanting to keep me right here, keep me from doing anything. Take a few deep breaths. Talk to yourself. Don't listen to yourself. Also is a real powerful thing. Dr. Ron?
Well, a lot of people, because breathing is a big tool for that I use, but it's breathing is really allowing you to relax your body, but it's also connecting you to your right brain, which is more spontaneous, big picture awareness and capable of handling things in a whole different way than that logical linear left brain. And so and it also is more emotionally oriented. The right brain is more emotionally oriented. So as you're breathing, you get in touch with emotions, you get in touch with your feelings, you get in touch with your childhood and past events and that type of thing. But you're doing it in a way that feels safe. You're doing it in a way that feels you're more on a journey, and you're running into points of interest that you want to breathe into and through and access the power and reconnect with those parts of yourself that you've hidden away so far. But the important thing for me is on a neurological level, as you heal the past, you're empowering your future, you're quieting your mind. So the left brain and the right brain begin to become a team. Quite literally, the right brain sees the bigger picture, the left brain sees the optimal path to acquiring or reaching those goals. And the corpus callosum, which is the canal, the channel in between them, begins to develop and grow. When they dissected Einstein's brain, very normal brain, except for that corpus callosum, was really large. In other words, the connections within his brain, the right and the left, were empowered. And as you heal your past, your mind gets quieter. And as it gets quieter, the prefrontal cortex begins to develop and become the conscious CEO that it was intended to be. And as it enlarges, it really allows you access to levels of thinking that you've never had before. They're not fear oriented, they're conscious, aware oriented. And you just see what's not only best for you, but best for everybody. You see, just you're accessing your highest levels of thinking, your highest levels of understanding, and in a very spontaneous, effortless, safe sort of way. So you're able to, rather than seeing challenges and problems, you see opportunities, and you embrace those opportunities as ways that you can move through life and be more successful.
You're never, ever, ever going to feel like it. You just have to force yourself to take action. You're not going to feel like it. But once you take that action, it becomes a habit and you don't have to think about it anymore. I mean, Ryan, how many habits do you have today that are really, truly effortless for you now that, man, it was like, you want me to do that every day, you know?
Yeah, I mean, even down to drinking water. Like I saw something on the internet the other day that said, I don't think as a child I drank water. Like I don't think I drank water until I was 35. Right, right. It's like it was here's a juice box, here's a maybe from the hose. But now, I mean, Kara and I both lug these giant bottles around all day, every day, and it's like this is just what we do, and it's normal, right? I love that, we're talking through self-awareness and how you have to go through all of that. Kara, I remember a conversation that you and I had years ago, and I was like, I just want all that crap buried where it's supposed to be. And you were like, yeah, me too. So watching your metamorphosis over the last several years has been incredible. And it's completely changed your outlook. And so I would love to hear how you overcame that just in a little bit. Like we don't need to go all the way in, but just tell us a little bit about what that looked like in the beginning for you.
Yes, absolutely. And I have admitted publicly many times on this very podcast how embarrassed I am that I did used to believe that leave that past back there. That is in the cave and it's not messing with me at all. I am successful. I mean, look at my life. I'm successful. And guys, please hear me when I say this. Dr. Ron alluded to it earlier in a question. He's because you ask him, what makes people say, okay, I'm going to dig into this? And he told you it's almost always my lady was leaving me, my businesses are failing, my kids hate me, my all the stuff, or a major health issue. And that was mine. And so I asked Dr. Ron on a podcast once, kind of at the beginning, I said, how many people would you say come to you when it's the last resort? When it's like, I have tried everything and then I'm going to go try this. And guys, please hear my heart. I'm gonna talk right from the heart because that is asinine. And I did it too, big time. It's like you do not want to go in there and deal with that stuff. You want to leave it. I promise you, I guarantee you, I wish I could give you a financial guarantee. I guarantee you, when you go in and you clean up that stuff, your life and the lives of those people around you will be so much more enhanced. It's much like if you're carrying this big load of all this stuff and you keep carrying it, I can't give you anything new because you're too busy carrying all that old crap. So please do not be me. Sign up for a discovery call with one of us. It doesn't cost you a nickel. It's free and will help you show you exactly what the big things that are holding you back are that you're completely oblivious to. You don't even know because it's the subconscious mind.
So yours was a physical manifestation. We see a lot of relational manifestation of all the junk that's inside of us. Is that burnout, or what does burnout look like in achievers? And then how does it feel once you get past it?
Well, I think it certainly either has reached burnout or is on the way to burnout because you're really disconnected within yourself. And that disconnection has you trying harder. And it's like when you see a car stuck in the mud, everybody presses on the gas pedal as hard as they can, and they're spinning their tires. Well, that's really what we're doing in our life is, the more fear oriented you are, in other words, the more out of control you are, usually the more in control you try and be, which, as I shared earlier, is really putting you more out of control. And so, you've got to gain control over your own mind if you're going to have any sort of control over your own life. And so you start by breathing. Everybody knows to take that, when we get fed up, we'll take a big breath. Well, there's a reason for that. There's a reason that the lion yawns when when they're relaxing. There's a, it's a matter of communicating to our body that we're not in fight and flight. And when you're not breathing, that's immediately what you're telling your body is be aware. The lion's going to jump out and we're going to run for our lives on the tundra of Africa, ancient years ago. And we're not there. That's just not the situation. So you've got to learn to just, rather than automatically shut your breathing down and be in that fear mode, is to breathe into and be curious. Breathe into and go, well, what am I feeling? What's underneath that feeling? Where's that coming from? In other words, you learn to breathe and be present, breathe and be curious enough to really take a bigger picture look at what's going on in your life so that, all of those upsets and concerns and things aren't just, you know, washing through everybody in your family and your organization and really creating a big messy life for everybody. All the tension and struggles that come from that rather than the ease and joy that can be there. So
And Stanford studies show that when you work more than 55 hours a week, you're it's backwards. You're making more mistakes, you're causing more problems. Zig Ziglar, also one of my very favorites. I might not be quoting it exactly, but he said something about you can't truly be considered a successful person in your business life if your home life is in shambles. And so often, this is the perfect client for us, is the person who has worked. They have done a ton of work. They've done personal development. They've grown. They have success. They can show you all that success. But the truth is, when they go home, they're not the same person at home. They're not happy. Their family gets the leftovers if there are any. And so that is not successful. Burnout is when you are, have you heard of Einstein time?
No.
It's beautiful. Einstein time is something that you absolutely love doing. You're enjoying it very, very much. You could do it for 8 hours and it feels like it was 30 minutes. And something that you absolutely hate doing, you could do it for 30 minutes and it feels like 8 hours. And so that's what causes burnout, is doing what we're not supposed to be doing. And we don't slow down and stop and look and say, well, what should I be doing? That's what this work is about.
if you don't, if you can't center yourself, it just cascades. It's like, how do you best calm an upset child? Well, I mean, I see it all the time in life. Well, you yell at them, of course. Yeah. You shake them a little bit. You know, threaten them in some way. I mean, it's like, no, that just upsets the child. And so they become overwhelmed and you become overwhelmed and then you get frustrated and then the energy level is, what I share with parents, as a psychologist, I used to work with families and couples a lot. And it's like a child, and I refer to, thinking in terms of your organization, your family, and others like that. But your child really is learning how to handle their energy. So rather than upset the child, help them breathe and manage their energy. Help them breathe and be centered enough so they can look at, well, what are you really feeling? What's really going on? Have them breathe and look at what they really need, what they really want. And that way they're not just going out of control. They're learning, oh, I'm having something that I don't know what to deal with. So I know I need to breathe so that I can really be present enough to see what the best next step is for me. And as you learn to do that for yourself and you help your child, but that also goes into an organizational, stability. Your greater awareness equals increased consciousness, if you will. And, as a child, it's not, doesn't play out as the same as adulthood, but your level of consciousness really determines how you see, experience, and react to whatever's coming into your life. So if I'm in a low state of consciousness, more fear-oriented and concerned, then I'm going to react badly. But if I'm in a good state of consciousness, I'm going to really see it. I'm going to understand it and respond to it in a more supportive way. And I'm going to recognize that, wow, everything that's coming into my life is an opportunity to grow. Everything is really perfect if I'm in the right state of consciousness to receive it and handle it in a supportive way. And so guide your children, guide your organization, and let it be a reflection of that deeper awareness and understanding, that higher level of consciousness that you're on. You know, it was a Xerox research. I think they interviewed about 1,500 CEOs worldwide, really the top players. 70% of them acknowledged they didn't feel like they were capable of doing the job. But there was 7% that it was fascinated me because they were having a blast. And really, when you looked at who they were and what they were doing, they were people who were more conscious. They were people who had gone on that inner journey, that hero heroine's journey. They'd really become more self-aware, emotionally intelligent, and able, more confident and capable of really creating organizations that were taking care of it themselves. And so, you know, it just, you get to control what kind of life you want. And breathing is the moment where you have the most control over what you're going to do with the moment, what you're going to do with your life, how you're going to serve and support others, and your connection to existence.
That's really cool. I'm sitting here thinking when we bring on a new team member into our organization, we have a job description for them, right? And in that job description, it's very clear what's expected of them. There's a lot of clarity around that so that they know what we want from them, so that we know that they're doing what they've been hired to do, right? My business partner and I always say clarity is kind. But I think so often as leaders, we're not clear with ourselves of what we are expecting from ourselves in any kind of scenario, right? We just know that we got to get it done. And so by having that pattern interruption and that time to sit with it, I think it's really cool to hear you think through all of that, because I think so often we don't give ourselves enough time to get clarity around any of that. So we end up working outside of our zone of genius. I end up doing paperwork when I should be having conversations because it's just easier to just get it done, right? Like that.
Putting out your own data signs.
And that's an indicator of mid-level leadership. You know, in leadership studies, there's different levels of leadership. And so mid-level, you're trying to get it done, you're trying to accomplish, you're looking for that level of leadership. But as you move into the higher levels of leadership, which are just more conscious, you're concerned with others, you're looking at the bigger picture, and it just, it gets to a place where, I have people who are running one organization with difficulty when they come in, and they'll end up with, 5, 6 years later, running multiple organizations with ease because they've, developed the organization from a conscious place, and the people within it are part of that consciousness. So, yeah.
Does that lean into the whole brain leadership and the big mind? Tell us about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's, think in terms of, if you're just using your left brain, you're going to get it burnout. You're going to run into exhaustion. Then as you heal your past and quiet your mind, you develop that integrated whole brain thinking. All of a sudden, you're much more creative, much more intuitive, much more spontaneous. Your imagination is instead of dipping a cup into the well of your imagination, you're able to dive into and swim around. And so, it's really a whole different way of being. And so if I can get people to integrated whole brain thinking, that's a congratulations. Their life's gonna be completely different. But the real graduation is, okay, now you're using integrated whole brain. Now let's quiet your mind even more. Rather than when a challenge comes up, rather than trying harder, let's just sit back and breathe and let go of thinking altogether. And all you do is kind of put out what it is I need. That's if you really want to access the best of who and what you are, then that's big mind. Big mind is, we have these different brain waves. We have brain waves for when we're very quiet, or when we're meditating, or when we're trying to figure something out, or when we have a really complex problem, or when we're sleeping. Those delta, theta, alpha, all these different brain waves are available to us, but they come to us at different times in different ways. As you learn to quiet your mind, you've healed your past and you're present and you're breathing. And from that place of curiosity, all of those different frequencies are available. And what's happening is there's a bridge across all of those different brainwave frequencies called an alpha bridge that allows you to access the best of who and what you truly are. It allows you to go outside of just the limitations of logic and big picture to levels of knowing that you didn't even know you had access to. And that's big mind. And as you play with that, as you practice that, of course, then it comes immediate. There's no process even. You just think big mind. You trust the quiet. You trust that you can access that level of thinking due to being quiet and present and curious. So it's just, I always say, what level do you want to play on? What level of consciousness? What level of ability do you want to access and live from?
And just to
Wow.
back that up, I believe it was Einstein. I'm not positive, but I believe it was Einstein that had a couch in his office. And he would go and he would lay down and he would hold something in his hand that was heavy, like keys or something. And he would lay down. And as soon as he fell asleep, the keys would hit and he'd wake up. And that's when he had his best ideas. So he probably went into theta state, right? And instead of having to lay down and do it, Dr. Ron's work helps you be able to access it at any time, anywhere. It's truly cool. You're gonna love this, Ryan.
I mean, I'm
Well,
ready to,
yeah.
how can do I sign up? What do we have to do? Where do we go?
And just to stay with the Einstein idea, when he was trying to develop or grasp and hold on to the E equals MC squared, he was really struggling for months trying to put that together, and longer than that and over bigger picture. But he took a break. He went in and took a shower. And of course, when you're in the shower, just relaxed. And of course, that's when it came to him, is in that quiet moment. And so, yeah, that's, if you really want to know what you're capable of, who you truly are, what your greatest aspiration in life might be, you've got to get to that place where your mind is quiet enough so you can be present and curious enough to really explore and understand who you truly are.
Gosh, I feel like we are missing this so much in the world today. Like, how often do we go outside? And I mean, I remember I'm sitting on Kara's deck at her house one time, and she's right in the middle of the hummingbird migratory path, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hummingbirds all around me. And and give me that. And she took my phone away and she went in the house, she took it away, and I was like, oh my God, what do I do? I'm gonna look at the birds. And then she came back and she got my iWatch off my wrist and took that inside so that I was actually really present. And I think about that all the time when now I go outside on my patio and I'm having my coffee and I'm like, I leave my phone in the house, right? Like it's such it seems so simple, and yet for most of us it's so hard. I even think about my teenager who turns her phone on while she's in the shower and she's listening to stuff while she's in the shower, or we are never just alone with ourselves. And I remember thinking for the longest time that to be quiet with myself would be torture. And so I know I'm not alone in that. So I think you guys are going to be making a huge impact on our communities. I'm blown away already. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
Um,
that quiet is the greatest gift you can ever give yourself.
okay. Kara,
Yes,
what
dear.
did I not ask you that I should have asked you?
Oh my gosh. Um, how it's going to go. So we are going to do the very first one, like you announced at the beginning. We're going to do that live, uh, quite possibly on YouTube and LinkedIn. We're still working out the details on that. So that one will be live, and then we'll also drop that we're doing on Monday at the same time we drop all of our podcasts. So from October 7th for the next 10 weeks, it will be this series of Dr. Ron and I going through what we just talked about here today, only in much deeper dive so that you can walk away from this different than you came in.
Can you imagine what it's going to be like when everyone that is part of this walks into 2026 with a just a renewed sense of self? Like this is so cool, you guys. I'm so excited. Okay, October 6th, 10 o'clock Mountain Time. No, 11 o'clock Mountain Time. Don't ask me and Kara to convert that time zone. We can't.
It's we did this last one. We did. I was very proud of us.
We did very good. So, Dr. Ron, if you can help me get to a higher level of theta mind to convert time zones, that'd be really cool.
That
Uh,
would be cool.
that would be really cool. Well, I'm so excited for you guys. This is going to be amazing. I can't wait to get my entire leadership team signed up to come and check out your masterclass. It's going to be huge.